Welcome to another episode of Just Vibing, episode 17. I'm here with Ira Gorawara. She's a writer for currently The Athletic, also the Daily Bruin, and a bunch of other publications. So definitely cool to have someone on. It's like, I guess, of my background, and also like, who's in the field of sports writing and everything. That's I've pivoted towards that as well. Obviously, with like On the Banks and all that good stuff. But I mean, like, yeah, no, I mean, it's glad to, I mean, I'm glad to have you on. Obviously, the series is a fun one for me because I get to talk to people around, the sports media industry. I think this is the first time I've had someone like really focused in on writing, but I guess if you could just like introduce yourself to like, the viewers, and then we could just start from there.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here. My name's Ira Gorawara. I'm rising senior at UCLA. Like Arnav mentioned, I worked for the Daily Bruin. Last year I was a sports editor at the Daily Bruin. This past summer I was interning at the LA Times, and now, as mentioned, I'm interning at the Athletic in the fall. I'm born and brought up in Hong Kong, so been there since I came to college 3 years ago. And yeah, originally Indian, grew up in Hong Kong, and so go back pretty often. Last summer, I was there working at the South China Morning Post, and then ended my freshman year summer. So 2 years ago, I was working at the broadcast team at NDTV in New Delhi, which is where a lot of my family is. So yeah, excited to be here, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you for coming. I mean, sounds like you definitely have an interesting background, and it seems like we all like based on talking to people in the industry, everyone kind of has a different background and how they got started and this. And I know like I definitely did myself, but like, how did you I guess where did your like passion for like writing and like sports writing like come from?
Yeah, so I wanted to be a poet when I was in like the third or fourth grade. I just love poetry. I used to write like poems about all my different family members and send it to them. And that was like kind of what I loved doing when I was super young. And I had like a little like I kind of made my own little like book with full of like poems. Like, that was like my biggest hobby. But at the same time, I grew up in big sports family. My dad is a big golfer. My mom is a yoga teacher. She also played squash growing up. My brother played tennis, and then he played cricket for the Hong Kong team. So big sports family. I grew up swimming competitively. And then like the sixth grade, I started playing basketball, and that's like, my probably favorite sport, like biggest love after that. But
Hmm.
yeah, so I started wanting to do poetry, and that really made me, that's what made me kind of into the sort of more creative side of writing. And then kept doing that, kept sort of doing like creative writing. I love those classes in like, middle school. And then I went to a Warriors camp because, like I said, I played basketball. I switched to basketball in middle school and quit swimming. I went to a Warriors camp in Oakland at the Warriors practice facility. I think it was the summer before high school started. And at the camp, there was this girl who was an NBA broadcaster. She was a Warriors broadcaster at the time, who was there. Her name is Ross Goldon-Woode, and she came and she was just speaking to us, and she kind of talked about her journey. And she played basketball growing up, played at Stanford in college, and played professionally. And then she kind of, stopped playing basketball, and she was on the media side of it. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I love basketball, I love writing, and this is kind of a way for me to like marry my two biggest passions. So that kind of opened my eyes to journalism and this being a potential field for me, because I knew that like as much as I love basketball, playing college at the college level is going to be really hard, especially being in Hong Kong, and there's not as much like recruiting and stuff there and the resources. So I came back to start of high school, and then I joined my school newspaper. And from there, it kind of took off. I realized it's something that I love doing. I was like the sports editor of my school paper, and then the editor in chief my junior and senior year. So got good kind of, some exposure there into sort of sports journalism, and just kind of started developing my voice. I then published a book at the end of high school, which was basically a short story collection. It's called The ABCs of Life. It was 26 different stories. Each one kind of had different themes. So like A had a title, B had like, B was titled Brother, I think, C was like something else, D was something else, you get the point. And each one was a different sort of genre. So some were poems, because I love poetry, as I mentioned. Some were like, narrative style, creative writing. Some were like nonfiction. Some were like, I had like a recipe in there. I had my last like Z was written in Chinese, because the Chinese word for like ending, like in conclusion, starts with a Z. So that was thinking behind that. And then that really helped me develop my voice and, figure out how like my writing style. And then, yeah, I joined the Daily Bruin when I came to college, in my freshman year. And then I was assistant sports editor my sophomore year, and then sports editor last year. And it's just been really good because I know I want to do this long term. And so I'm like, it's been easy to kind of navigate all of it and take every opportunity that's presented to me because pretty sure about wanting to continue in this field.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, that's definitely like a great summary, I guess, of everything. Yeah, no, I mean that's cool. I mean, for me, I kind of like I think I wanted to be more on the speaking side. And well, first of all, I did band. I was like a musical kid, and then I ended up doing Rutgers marching band. And then I kind of found out about the radio station like through that by being around like the buses in the community. And then I was like, this is cool because I think I originally wanted to do play by play. And later on, I kind of realized I was kind of having a hard time, and I was like a better writer, and then they kind of shifted into that direction. But yeah, no, I mean, like I really enjoy it. I think I saw on your website too, like you said, you're like more relatively like reserved, but like I guess you were able to like just show your ability to. I mean, you used to like you write poetry and stuff, so you used to like communicate better through that. So I kind of feel like I've always kind of been the same. Like I could put my thoughts on the paper like really articulately, and then of course like I mean, I do this podcast too. Like I've definitely brought out my speaking side too, but I think I do have a passion for writing, breaking things down. But yeah, no, that's pretty cool about your own background. I mean, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, like in terms of I guess your time at like the Daily Bruin, like I was reading like through some of your work and stuff. I mean, you have this column called like Ira's Intuition. I guess like what's that kind of like about? Because I guess I feel like it goes a little bit deeper than sometimes just some of the sports stuff, and it's kind of like gives you your perspective, I guess.
Yeah, so column writing was something I remember my freshman year I always wanted to get better at. And I knew that I had a lot of ideas and things I wanted to write about, but I didn't really know how to go about it. So through talking to some people like in the industry and just trying to get advice and trying to read a lot of columns, like one person who I love is Bill Plaschke of the LA Times. He's like one of the best columnists, if not the best columnist, like in the industry, and he's just so talented. Same with Stuart Mandel and a bunch of others at The Athletic. And that really helped me sort of understand column writing and what goes into it. And then I launched my column, Ira's Intuition, just this last year. Or 2 years ago now, when I was a sophomore. And basically, yeah, it's a chance for me to write about what like my opinions within UCLA sports. But I will say my favorite one was one I did earlier this year in March. Basically, it's super long, but in summary, what happened was UCLA women's basketball was playing USC women's basketball. And I'm sure a lot of you will know that this past year, they were the top 3 or top 5 teams in the country for most of the year. And they were playing for the Big Ten regular season title. So you can imagine it's a really big game. They have two of the biggest stars. USC had Juju Watkins, and UCLA had Lauren Betts and Kiki Rice. And so, a lot of sort of publicity around both these programs. And basically outside the line for to get into Pauley Pavilion, which is UCLA's stadium, was absolute chaos. Like students weren't getting wristbands. Students that were lined up for hours weren't getting wristbands, and then it was just absolute chaos. It was just some people were getting wristbands, some people were complaining about why they were waiting for so long and weren't getting wristbands, and they were mad at the athletic department, and there was all sorts of chaos. So I went there, I talked to a bunch of students, figured out what was happening, and they were really upset because they were there's only they thought it was 100 wristbands given out for a stadium that can hold 13,800 people. So they were they were really upset, rightfully so. And then it was just chaotic, right? There was so all sorts of they were just hating on the athletic department. And so I wrote a column about it. And the headline was UCLA athletics failed its students. So you can only imagine that UCLA athletics was not very happy with this.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a good learning lesson because there were some mistakes that I made in the column in terms of some facts that I had to, nail down a little better, and a couple other things. And so it was a really good learning lesson for me. But I would say the bigger thing was that it was a chance for me to to kind of voice students' frustrations, and me being a student was easy to kind of understand that. I think that's one really powerful thing about student journalism is that we are students, so we understand their sort of frustrations better than a really, really talented beat reporter at a national outlet or the LA Times or whatever it might be. And we go through the motions. We're in classes with them. We see them every day. They're our friends. So that was a really good call. That was something that I'm always going to remember working on, and the product of it, because I think it was an important thing to share because of the frustration students had, and also as a learning lesson for me. So yeah, that column is something I'm really sort of proud of. It actually just got nominated for best sports column in the College Media Association, which is pretty cool. So yeah, like I said, something that I'm really, hold close to my heart, and I'm really glad I was able to do, and something I've learned a lot from.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it definitely sounds pretty cool. Especially like when you get to talk about like issues within like the community and or within the athletics department. That's obviously a tough one to navigate.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
yeah, I mean, like I'm thinking of an article that like me and my like site manager wrote about like it was like a spin on I guess like something about the Rutgers like not the department so much, but like the fan base and universities. There's like kind of this apathy towards athletics, and I was like, well, instead of tackling that from a negative perspective, we can like kind of say like, well, how does it really benefit the university? Because I'm like, people really need to know. Like every now and then, I read all these columns about how Rutgers is running in the red, and it's just like really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm like, well, instead of criticizing that, like why don't we like educate people on like what the athletics in general like does for the university, for the fans, for the academic side of it. And in the Big Ten, I was just like felt really passionate. We wrote it actually did really well, so I was pretty
Yeah,
happy.
awesome.
It's kind of like the same idea, but then I also started this other series called like Arnav's Analysis, which is more just like a deep dive on like weekly like our what's it, like a deep dive on like the opponents and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
like or the game summaries for Rutgers football. But I mean, I guess my point being like I just it's nice for me to be able to, or for for you too, like I mean for us to be able to put your name on something and call it like your own column. Like I feel like that was definitely really cool, like something that I've kind of worked towards, like gaining that respect and being in a position where I can like show my knowledge and speak on issues. And I feel like that's what like
for sure.
journalism's like all about. So I mean,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's sort of like fun in it, like obviously I love sort of reporting and like, writing and doing sort of news stories, but like there's so much fun and just enjoyment and just writing your opinion and obviously having the facts and stuff to back that up. And it's
Yeah,
not
of
just like
course.
random
Yeah.
fact, it's not just like BS for lack of a better word, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just you're able to express yourself, like you're able to kind of say what you think, and it's clear that it's opinionated, so no one can really hate on you for it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was nice because I mean there were so many facts on our side. Like I've seen, like I've seen the other side of it too, and I'm like like I mean you can argue it how you want. Like I'm not gonna blame people who don't feel the same way, but like my whole thing was like, well, there's so much that Rutgers does for the athletics does for the revenue and for the academics, and people don't really see this. They just say they don't go together and people are wasting money, but that's not really the truth. Like when you really take a look at it, like there's so much good it does, and I'm like at the very least like we should at least be able to put the facts out there, let people decide for themselves
Yeah,
what they
for
think. And
sure.
I mean I was glad it did well. I mean our site's the sports site, so I don't know if it hit the exact right audience, but even in our sports community, like people don't
Sure.
often know about that either. So I was just
Yeah.
like, but another I guess piece that like I thought was really like I guess interesting and well done was like the piece about like Mateen Bagnani, like
Yeah.
the UCLA kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely wanted to talk about that. And then you also have one on Sebastian Mack, Monique
Yeah.
Billings, like these player profile pieces. Like, I guess what do those like kind of mean to you, like writing that? Like, obviously with Bagnani, like South Asian kicker, kind of rare. Like Rutgers has one too, Jay Patel. I've always
Yeah.
like found inspiration in that, being
Yeah.
Indian American myself, and like I always thought he was like really cool, and also he's really accurate as a kicker. So I was just, but
Yeah.
kind of similar thing for you, I guess. Like, what does it mean to like be able to write those types of pieces?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you reading those. I mean, that's my favorite sort of stories to write. I love those human-centered stories where I can really just like speak to one person and just really tell their story. I'm actually working on one right now about Nico
Oh
Iamaleava,
yeah.
which I'm sure everyone knows
Hmm.
about. But again, the story isn't, yeah, obviously I'm going to mention, his Tennessee saga and the fallout and all that. But like the story is just to humanize him. And I spoke to a bunch of people from his high school, like coaches and principals and teammates and all that, to just like humanize the guy because there's so much sort of backlash around his name. So yeah, that's back to the stories that you were mentioning. That's like my favorite to do. And yeah, with Mateen, he, like you mentioned with Jay Patel, he's one of, you know, the biggest bright spots in UCLA's offense, especially last year, and I'm sure this year as well. He's a very accurate kicker. He's one of the best in UCLA football's history. But I thought the fact that he's Pakistani American was so cool because there aren't that many. Like there's a countable number
Yeah.
of them in college football and in the NFL. And so I think the fact that, you know, that representation is really impressive. Also for me, I'm Indian American. I mean, not American, but I'm Indian, and I played sports growing up. I played basketball, right? That was also predominantly sort of American sport. So I kind of could resonate in that way as well. And it was just cool to get to speak to him, to get to speak to his parents, and really just get more insight into him. And yeah, that story actually just got nominated for a best sports feature story for the Associated Collegiate Press. So that, like, I think it did resonate with a lot of people because it's something unique, and something worth sharing. Like, I'm part of the Asian American Journalists Association, which, like, in the name, it's, for all Asian American journalists. And I
Right.
just think those kinds of stories and highlighting us and our, like, diversity and our representation is so cool. And that's something that I'm super, like, glad I got to do. I got to do a similar-ish piece, not in an as personal of a way, but there's the Rams. Also, when I was at the LA Times, I wrote a story about the Rams linebacker, Nate Landman. He just transferred from the Falcons in the offseason. And he's like, the general story around him that's like anywhere on the internet is that he's, he has a green dot on his helmet. He's doing a really good job. He's like, his transition to the Rams has been really smooth. But when I was doing research on him, I found out that he's actually from Zimbabwe, and he has this like massive lion like on his bicep, and he has like a giraffe and like a kangaroo and like more animals and trees on his arm. And that was really neat because I thought, like, again, he's just trying to symbolize, like, trying to represent his Zimbabwe roots. So I spoke to him about that and did my story all about that. Obviously mentioned, the football stuff, but that's what kind of stuff interests me more. Like, love football, love watching the sport, but that's what kind of catches my attention more than the X's and O's of the sport. So it's really cool to feature that and to speak to him about something that made him also excited to talk about. He had so much to share about, like, traditions and food he likes and the family and all this. So yeah, I just love doing those stories, and that's my favorite part of the job for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely really interesting when you get to take a more personal look in on somebody's background, and, like, especially with the South Asian connection. That one's like,
Yeah,
obviously that one hits home.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe like I should think about doing something like that for Jay Patel while he's still
For
here. I
sure.
mean, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think it'd be a good idea. I'll see how he does this season. But in terms of, like, I guess the game, your game wraps. I mean, you've covered like a lot of sports, like, volleyball and football, basketball, like, other ones too. I guess, like, what's it like to be able to, I guess, do that? Like, go to the game, like, write a recap, go to press conferences, like all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the sports that I'm covering now, especially football, is something like I grew up in Hong Kong, right? People don't play or talk about American football
Right.
in Hong Kong. So kind of to come here and learn the sport from scratch. I didn't know much about it. You know the basics, but not much more.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty, like, it was tough at first. That's a tough sport to understand, as you know. But it was pretty rewarding to be able to tell stories, like tell football stories after, spending time figuring out the sport and learning all the terminology and all the jargon. So that
Yeah.
was pretty cool. And I think something that I've tried to, like, hone is that flexibility and being able to cover any sport and realizing that as long as you can tell a good sports story, you can do it for any sport. So whether that's volleyball or baseball, another sport that I didn't grow up watching, obviously basketball I was very familiar with, but volleyball, rowing, I was covering, tennis, whatever it is. I think if you can tell a good sports story and you know how to tell a sports story, you can do it for any sport. So that's something that I've learned through, covering all sorts of sports. But sorry, you remind me of your questions. I think I
Oh,
sidetracked a little bit.
no, I guess I was just asking, like, I guess what's that experience like? Because,
Yeah,
I'm kind of new to that part of it myself. But I mean, like, what's
yeah.
it kind of like doing those, the process of writing those recaps after a game?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I first started my freshman year, for the Daily Bruin, how it works is for any sport besides men's and women's basketball, gymnastics, and football, we have, for all other, like, sports, varsity sports at UCLA, you have basically till the next day to file your story, or it goes up the next day. So you have until like late
Mm-hmm.
night to file the story. And then when I started covering basketball and football my sophomore and junior year, I had to turn those stories around as soon as like the buzzer sounded. When the fourth
Yeah.
quarter is done, your story's pretty much in. So it was definitely sort of a learning curve to figure that out. But I think I tried to kind of push myself towards the end of my freshman year to get used to, like, faster turnaround. And now it's like obviously more of like second nature to get those stories in faster. And at the LA Times and things like that, they need stories in much faster. So it's been pretty cool to be able to like, I never thought my freshman year that I could do that, because I needed like 4 hours or something to like flesh out the story and, really look over and edit it and revise it and all that. And so there's like a beauty in kind of doing it while the game's going on. And I was just thinking the other day, like beginning of my junior year, when I was, more actively covering football and basketball, press conferences scared me the most. Like I would be so excited to go cover the game, and then I'd be like, oh my God, the press conference is like gonna happen. And I'm like terrified. Like I don't want to be there. I was too scared to like ask questions. And it's just funny now, because now, especially this summer, like that's my favorite part of going to practice, going to games. Like I just love being able to ask questions, because if you ask anyone, my roommate who's my best friend, or my mom or my brother, anyone, they'll tell you how many questions I ask and how annoying it can be. Like when I was younger, my mom used to like set aside like question hour, because she'd be like, you have too many questions you're asking. So like 6 or 7 every day, she'd like ask all your like dumb questions. So I'm very naturally like that, like with all my friends. And now that I'm kind of more confident in A, the questions I'm asking, and B, just like myself and the reporter that I am, I'm able to be more comfortable asking questions to coaches and players, even if I don't know a whole lot about their background. So yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about the job now, is just asking questions and asking those sort of like, again, like off the field sort of culture related questions. Again, like I really enjoy that kind of like human interest sort of stuff. So yeah, so that's something I had to like take time to learn and take time to get, to enjoy. But I think that's one of my favorite parts about the whole process now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I've been to some press conferences for radio too. That's like, it's a bit nerve-wracking in the beginning, and then also just like writing the story during the game, or in our case, like immediately, like right after, even like that can also be tough. But like, yeah, my guy will like, I mean, we have like, I'm doing the analysis series, so he's doing the recap. So right after the game, like we're kind of like unofficial media, so we like get back, and then he's writing it, and then I'm like trying to come up with my ideas. I'm taking it home, and I'm like writing a longer piece. So like all of that, like right after the game. I mean, yeah, it can be tough, but it's rewarding when it gets done. My first one came out, and I was just like, this is like really good, and I was just like, wow, I was like amazed. I was like, this is cool. That's my first ever Arnav's analysis series post about the Ohio game, and I have like a few other ones too. Like when we're doing this around the Big Ten series, we're doing like, I'm doing this fun one called Opponent Film Room, where I'm like breaking down plays like from the opponents from their previous games and discussing it, because I'm a big X's and O's guy actually. So like I do want to get, I mean, I like all the human stuff, and I also do like covering all the smaller sports. Like that's something I picked up early with On the Bank. So I was like, there's not much going on. Then I look at Rutgers athletics, and I'm like, rowing's going on, track's going on. I'm like, how can we like not cover it? So like I started doing that. Now when football season's hitting, I have to make sure to do that with volleyball and field hockey. Like I don't want to like leave that in the dust either. But in terms of like schemes, and it's just fun because it gets you more prepared. We did like this whole opponent preview thing in the summer, and now just like looking at highlights, and I like to call watching film. It's not really the actual like all 22 film, but I mean like it is what it is. But it's cool. Like I feel like it's unique, and I don't know. I really do like that stuff, and getting to be there at the games now is definitely very rewarding. Yeah, which I mean, I guess that kind of brings me to my next thing I was going to ask you. Like obviously, for UCLA, you're at the Rose Bowl. I saw like I think on your Twitter profile or one of them, like it's at you at like Penn State, which is obviously like notorious, the notoriously big stadium. I mean, they have the whiteout. They have over 100,000 people. So like, I guess what other like cool stadiums have you like been going to, and like what's that like to be able to travel for the job?
Yeah, I remember Penn State that was the first football game I was like writing the game story of, and it was at Penn State. And there was that night was their stripe out day. So there was 110,000 fans. If I'm not wrong, that was like the 7th highest at the time in like program history, which was surprising to me because they were playing UCLA, and UCLA is not a football school. but it was an insane atmosphere. And that was my first one. I think the next one I went to was Husky Stadium for the UW game.
Hmm.
That was also a beautiful stadium. I don't know if you've been there, if you've seen it, but
I've not, but I've heard like great things about it. Yeah.
yeah, it's super pretty, and it was a night game. So like it was like evenings. We saw sunset. It was really pretty.
Yeah,
The
I
only
heard
thing
they
was
have this thing called like sailgating or over there because it's like right on the river in Seattle.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was just a really nice atmosphere. But the one thing I remember, it was like November, maybe early November, if I'm not wrong. And or maybe in mid-November, whatever it was really cold. And I remember I was sitting on the front row of the press box, and like there was obviously a window in front of us. And then when like middle of the game or something, they put the windows up. And so now it's just like freezing. And I was like way too cold. And so I just was like, I couldn't move my fingers to type. So I was like, I'm just gonna go sit at the back in the dining area and just watch the game from like the screen for the third quarter and a bit of the fourth and just do it from there because it was too
Mm,
cold. But
yeah,
it was really cool. I think outside of like those are the football stadiums I've been to, I believe. We had obviously other road games, but some of our other reporters went to those, like at LSU and
hmm.
a couple
Oh
others I'm
yeah, I
forgetting now.
forgot UCLA also went there because they played USC like the first game of last year. Like, well, LSU did at least, and then
Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
that's cool though. Yeah,
Yeah. And then yeah, this summer I got to go to like, into a dome, crypto, all those places for basketball stuff. And
right.
it's just like iconic. It's just so cool. It never
Yeah, and
gets old.
it's got to be cool to be able to travel for your job and like I mean even the home games are like pretty hype. Like if you get to call it your job and be like we got off like the bus and we're like this is like our job to like be here today, and it's just
Yeah.
like one
Yeah,
of
I
those
remember.
things. I'm like feel like I've earned
Yeah,
it. But
I
yeah,
remember going to Tampa for the women's basketball Final Four, and that was so cool. Like, Tampa, like we didn't get to the city that much, but obviously it was a Final Four, and it was like it
right.
was an insane atmosphere. That and also the men's basketball Big Ten tournament, which was at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, which is like
Yeah, yeah.
also iconic. So it's just yeah, like you're saying, it's so cool to say that that's your job.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, women's Final Four. I think I was watching some of that. That was how far did UCLA like get in that? I just
They
like
lost in the Final Four to UConn.
UConn. UConn won the whole thing,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember they blew out South Carolina too,
Yeah.
like in the final. Yeah, that was yeah, very good teams. But like yeah, that team Huskies team was very good. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, so yeah, women's basketball. I mean, it's really become really interesting, especially with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reed. Like the WNBA, after following like college women's basketball, like that's not something to sleep on. Like I mean, they play just as hard as the men do. Like it's very entertaining, and yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend it for any basketball fan out there to watch like the WNBA college women's basketball, especially too. So yeah, no, I mean,
Oh
but in
yeah.
terms of yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun. Like I never realized like how big it could be and how big college sports in general are. But like after covering all of that, like I was just like, no, this is definitely pretty real. I mean, the way Caitlin Clark fever caught on, like I remember she came to Rutgers and I was producing the game for radio, but like
Oh
people
cool.
who were there were like, this place is packed and like it's like so many people were there. It was like absolutely like a madhouse, and I was just like, wow.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
What
So
she's done to the sport is like incredible. Like
exactly.
so
Now
many
everyone's watching the
years.
WNBA. Everyone's
Yeah.
debating, Sophie Cunningham like protecting, and like it's just been like it's just been like nuts. Like I mean, yeah, it's cool to see. But I mean, another sport that like I thought was interesting, like you report for like a few different sites for like cricket, and that's a game that I've also gotten more into like
Cool.
recent years. I guess when like I guess like when they had the T20, and obviously I think for me like being Indian's definitely part of that, and having the Indian team being so good, but I guess what's your experience like reporting for different sites like I see cricket Hong Kong emerging cricket like the Major League Cricket too, which is I
Yeah.
guess starting to catch on the U.S. But I guess what's
Yeah.
your passion for that reporting and being a cricket fan like all about.
Yeah. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, my brother is big cricket guy. So is my dad, so is my grandpa, my cousins, just a big cricket family, as a lot of Indian families are.
Yeah.
My brother played cricket for Hong Kong at the age of like 17. So I was always very involved with like kind of, in the loop with Hong Kong cricket. And
Hmm.
he played for a club team growing up. So going to all those games and my dad being also fanatic and coaching my brother. So, and a lot of my friends played cricket growing up. So I was just always around the sport. So naturally, got pretty invested in it. And I just love watching, going to my brother's like club games, watching his national games, and then through that sort of watching more like Southeast Asia games, watching IPL obviously for
Oh,
like
it's huge.
as long
Yeah.
as I can remember.
Hmm.
And then my freshman year of college, I don't even know how it happened, but I was like already in the sports journalism space and I love cricket. I was like, my dad and I were like, let's try to do something with like, writing about cricket. So I started writing for Cricket Hong Kong, and I was sort of their main reporter and like content creator for the men's team. I did a little bit for the women's team, but mainly the men's. And just doing game stories, doing some previews, speaking to, I knew a lot of them pretty well because I'd grown up watching all their games. So it was just really cool. And it was very much like a full circle moment because it was, covering a sport, covering a team and players that I've grown up watching and, grown pretty close with as well. So that was cool. And then through that, through sort of understanding how to write about cricket and also just really enjoying it, I started writing. I like reached out to someone at Emerging Cricket, which is basically they cover all associate nations, and they're based. Most of them are based in the U.S. They cover all associate nations, and then I was doing the reporting for Hong Kong, but also for like Southeast Asia, and then I did a little bit of like their U.S. women's national team reporting or under 19 U.S. under 19 women's team. So that was really cool as well, and that sort of made me more aware of what else is happening in the cricket scene in the U.S. as well. And then Major League and Minor League happened like end of my so the my freshman year summer, end of my freshman year summer. Minor League happened when minor league was going on, and so I did a couple like game stories for them as well, which was super cool. And then I think so there's this cricket like journal, like it's an annual or biannual journal that's published in the UK. Some of the like editor in chief of that reached out to me my sophomore year and wanted me to like do a piece about US cricket because I'd done one for the Daily Bruin. And saw that and I think he wanted like something, kind of more fleshed out about USA cricket. So I did that, and it was actually in a book. If I had it with me, I would show it. But that was really cool to see, like, because he gave me he sent over a mailed copy, like a printed copy. It was really cool to see like my piece in a book. So that was also pretty exciting and also something different because it was kind of tailoring, you know, teaching the UK audience about USA cricket. So that was cool. And yeah, I haven't had as much time for it this past year just because being sports editor, which took up most of my time. But I did get to do some cricket pieces for the LA Times, which was so like incredibly rewarding and just made me really happy. So yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. It sounds really cool, and then especially tying it back with the LA Times, like you mentioned. I saw the one about like the LA Knight Riders. Like I guess
Yeah,
my
yeah,
family's
yeah,
from,
yeah.
yeah, like West Bengal, so I guess that would be the team like I associate with like the most, and they won the championship recently. So I guess what was that one like kind of all about? Like his ties with the Knight Riders in LA.
Yeah, so that story is about this guy called Chan. He is born and brought up in India. He led India under 19 to a 2012 World Cup. So he was like a big deal, like kind of like a prodigy in India. And then he was playing like, all the leagues. He was like a big guy, right? And then he sort of
Hmm.
India has so much talent in cricket. It was just like an overflow. And then he kind of got lost in that overflow of talent. And he was just, it's just so hard to be so good. And so he had to make a real decision for himself because he could continue playing in India at a lower level or he could really be a star somewhere else. And he noticed that, cricket in the US is getting really big, which it is. The
It
Olympics are getting
is,
bigger.
yeah.
World Cup
Hmm.
was here last year. The US beat Pakistan. There's a lot of
Yeah, that was crazy when they beat Pakistan. Like everyone was
yeah,
buzzing.
that was crazy, right? And with Major League and Minor League being
Yeah.
very well established now and a lot of big names coming to both those leagues, there's a lot of reason to have hope in the kind of the trajectory of USA cricket. But yeah, so he came here with his wife, and then he's been playing all sorts of leagues here. He's playing for the LA Knight Riders, which is one of the major league teams. And it's just a pretty cool story of someone playing in the cricket hub. You can't find a place better than India to play cricket, obviously. And
Hmm.
he left there to play in the US because he did see potential here. People would consider going to UK or Australia or New
Right.
Zealand for cricket because
Yeah.
those are also big sort of cricket playing nations.
Yeah.
But he came to the US. And so that was pretty cool. And he's a big sort of champion for USA cricket. He wants to develop talent here. He's coaches as well on the side of his own playing in his own like leagues and all the stuff he's doing on his own. So he really is like a believer in the promise and trajectory of USA cricket. So I thought it was a really cool story, and he had that tie to LA, which is why I did it for the LA Times.
Yeah, no, I mean that's really awesome. I mean, it got me like thinking because I think like a lot of the players on the U.S. team are they're from India or from the West Indies. Like they're I think are like there was like Saurabh Netravalkar. He was like a
Yeah,
software engineer and kind of
yeah,
same thing. I think he like kind of flamed out in the Indian like youth squad and then he took over. I guess he became like one of the captains or top players in the U.S. and like
yeah.
now it's cricket's like really booming here. Like having the World Cup in the U.S. last year was just absolutely nuts. And the U.S.
Oh
team,
yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, the U.S. team stunned Pakistan, and that was crazy. And they made it to, I think they made it to like some sort of, I don't know if they made it to the knockout, but they made it
Super
like pretty
8.
far. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did really well. And then I think eventually I guess they got exposed by some of the better teams. But it was just a really fun tournament. I was watching like a lot of games that summer, and that was just. Yeah, I mean, and then even the ODI World Cup like next year. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I guess my unpopular opinion, like, and I'm a big like now I'm started to become more of a baseball fan too, and I'm like a big Yankees guy, but they're up 7-1 against the Astros, but that's kind of nice. But I mean, my like unpopular like take is like I've always enjoyed like game of cricket better than baseball because like in terms of entertainment value, not even because I'm Indian or nothing like that. It's just like just a little bit of watched it, almost like this is really fun because the bat comes off the ball, there's big plays every time, and I'm just like this is something I could really be into. And, like yeah, that passion definitely like took off in a big way for me. And I think for one of my other internships at Sports Radio America, which kind of, they let you write different stories about whatever you want. I've taken a national look at a lot of things thanks to that. But I even wrote a couple cricket articles like based on the T20 and, that was pretty fun too, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I guess another thing that I saw you were doing was the UCLA blueprint, which is I guess more like societal issues and things along that line. So, I guess like what's that experience like been like for you?
Yeah, so my sophomore year, beginning of my sophomore year, I was in this class called Ethics of Communication. And it was taught by this professor called Jim Newton. And he is like a 25-year LA Times like legend. Like he was, big guy in the paper, really renowned sort of figure in the newsroom. And he actually like took part in writing the LA Times ethics guideline. So you can imagine this guy's very knowledgeable. And that was sort of like, that's beginning of my sophomore year. So I was still trying to seek out every opportunity I can. And so I just like spoke to him after class and I was like, I would love to, speak with you, learn more, see if there's any opportunities, do some research or whatever. And so him and I spoke, and he had this opening as an office manager at Blueprint, which is this like biannual magazine that he sort of started. And like you mentioned, it's all like societal issues that are affecting like the LA region, but it's focused on UCLA researchers. So, for example, this past issue or the one that's like in the works right now is I'm blanking. It's about climate change. So I spoke to like a UCLA professor who's an expert and is about to write a book about Chinese environmental policy. And my story that's going to come out in like a month ish is basically comparing like Chinese and American environmental policy and how America is like falling way behind because of the Trump administration sort of rules and policies on climate change and federal funding and all that. So that was pretty cool. And then we've done the issues on like transportation. We've done issues on AI. The last one we did was about the fires. It was like fires and like child welfare, like a kind of mix of things. So yeah, it's also a pretty cool way for me to explore journalism outside of sports. I don't only write, like I write an article and issue, but I also kind of manage all the behind the scenes. So all of our like event planning, all of our budget management, all of our invoicing, all of our like all the sort of logistical stuff, coordinating with all the vendors, making sure, sort of smoothing out all our publication processes and just a bunch of stuff, and also helping with edits and stuff like that. It's a bit of everything as it sounds,
Mhm.
but it's really cool to get a different sort of look at like first of all magazine writing. I've only done newspaper writing, so that's definitely different, and also to do more of this like budget management, things like that in the journalism space. So it's been I've really enjoyed it, and I love Jim. I've learned so much from him, just observing him and talking to him, and the people that I've met through Blueprint. And yeah, it's just a fun sort of outlet for me to do something outside of sports. It's like a good job to have. It's a good way to learn. It's a good way to explore outside of journalism. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I was able to that they wanted me on board.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's always like important to like spread your like horizons. Yeah, I mean, I try to do as much as I can in that front. I mean, I like that's kind of like when I did the piece about the academics and athletics thing. Like, I always like to have an open mind, and like definitely seems like you did that too. And obviously, I think the news stuff that's like very like important, like all the things that you're talking about. And then I guess like another thing that caught I guess my eye about your profile was like the like interning at the South China Morning Post, where you said you reported on the Olympics and like global events, so like kind of in the same frame of mind. But like what was that like? Obviously the Olympics, that's it's like a really big deal like around the world. So
Yeah, that was so cool. I mean, the China Morning Post is, the paper I grew up reading. It's a paper of record in Hong Kong and sort of South China. Um, and just being able to be in that newsroom it was just so incredible to write for my like hometown audience and hometown paper. And doing it during an Olympic year was even cooler. So I had done a little bit of freelance for cricket stuff with SCMP, so I was kind of familiar with the editors, but they were amazing. I mean, Josh Ball, and Tom Bell are like, I learned so much from them that summer. And reporting on the Olympics, it was tough because time difference, right? So Paris was like, I can't remember, 7 or 8 hours ahead, something like that. So we would, I remember the opening ceremony, I got in at like 10 or maybe midnight, and it started at like 3 a.m. or something like that. Or it was some wonky hours, like
yeah, it
forgetting. It
tends
was
to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was some wonk. Maybe it started at 10. It was some wonky hours. And so it was tough because a lot of my shifts were like overnight or like leading into like, midnight, ending at midnight. But it was great. I mean, it was so cool to report on the Olympics. And it was literally like a nonstop sort of 3 weeks of nonstop work. Like there was some days where we would need to 8 stories a day. I remember doing, but just like short quick things, because during the Olympics you just get a ton of stuff going out. You need a constant sort of flow of content, and keep the readers sort of coming back to the page. We had also like a live feed going every day of the Olympics for like 17 hours a day, so we needed sort of like short posts every day of like, this is happening, and also balancing like national sort of results. Like, even if China or Hong Kong isn't playing, like there are some things that everyone wants to know about, like USA basketball, for example.
Right.
And then balancing like local stuff, like Hong Kong table tennis or China badminton or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, where they're very good at. Yeah.
Exactly, the racket sports. So that, yeah, it was just a really cool experience. I mean, you can't ask for more than writing for the Olympics, except for being there, obviously, but it was super
Yeah.
cool.
No, yeah, that sounds really cool. I guess just an aside about the Olympics, like and men's basketball, like the U.S. was like on the ropes a couple of times. I remember I was watching that, and I was like Serbia, I think almost had them, or wherever Jokic's country, that
Jokic, yeah.
yeah, that they were like very very close, and like U.S. mounted a monster comeback, and then the final against France too. Like France was hanging in there, and then Steph Curry just went
Yeah.
nuclear, and he had the night on them, and it
Yeah.
was like yeah, I was
It was
just
iconic. And
it
I don't
was
know if you watched
iconic.
Court of
Yeah.
Gold, like the documentary on Netflix. But that does a really good job of showing like the pressure on the US team, because the longest time, like it was, USA men's basketball, there's nothing even like touches it. Like
Right.
nothing, nothing touches it. That team, and the dream team and all the legacy, and it's
Yeah.
just so iconic. But now, like, there's talent all over the world, as you're mentioning, Serbia, France, like Canada, there's talent
Hmm.
all over the world, where like the USA team is not this like big shot where no one can touch them, like the untouchables. So I think if you watch Court of Gold, it does a really good job of showing the pressure on the US team, because everyone's like, this is like your chance. Like if we lose, it's like a complete and utter failure. If you guys don't come back with a gold medal, like silver medal or bronze, anything else is utter failure. So it does a really good job of kind of showing that pressure, and how the sort of like name of USA men's basketball isn't as renowned. It's still renowned, but people are
Right.
coming closer.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising. I mean, with LeBron, Steph, and Kevin Durant, and like everyone that they had, like they were behind most of that game, and they clipped them from behind. But I mean, that team, that Serbia team, like I mean, they were just playing out of their mind, and then France
Oh
too.
yeah.
But I remember like listening to the call and or like hearing the French like announcers and like, but Steph Curry put them to bed. But I mean, it was still like a very good game, and they had like Gobert, they had Wembanyama, who's like a freak of nature, and like they had a lot of they have like I mean like Fournier, they have like a bunch of good players on that. That's probably the second best team in the world. So I mean, yeah, but that was a lot of fun. Olympics. I mean, the U.S. always does a good job. I mean, they have like really good swimmers. Like I'm always really fascinated by the sports we don't get to see all that often, like swimming and diving and like you said, like table tennis and gymnastics. Like there's just so much
Gymnastics, yeah.
talent. Yeah, gymnastics is huge too, and there's
Yeah.
just so much talent around the world. And then I think they're adding like cricket to the LA Olympics in
They
28. So I
are,
think
yeah.
that is going to be really, really. I cannot wait to see that. Like
I
having like
know.
to see like India and U.S. and like Australia, like all those countries that we know and love their or hate their teams, and like just seeing them in the Olympics. It's going to be in the T20 format. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for the
Cannot
first
wait
time
for
in over
that.
100 years, so it's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, all the top talent's going to be there, so I think it'll be really fun, and it'll probably open some eyes. I know flag football is going to be in the Olympics too, and some NFL players might be in that. So there's just like a lot of fun sports where there's like a new like something new, where we're going to get to see the best of the best go at it. So that should
Yeah.
be fun. Like yeah, so I guess LA 2028. I guess you'll be like around that area, so like I mean you'll probably
Yeah.
be around
I
there.
mean, I
So
don't even know because I'm graduating in June, so I don't know where,
oh, that's true.
life and my
Yeah.
career will take me, but it would be so incredible to cover the LA Olympics and be back
Yeah.
here.
Hopefully that definitely works out. Like it'll be really sick if you get to do that, obviously, like
Mhm.
being from there. Yeah, I mean, I guess like going into the present, like, obviously you just started your internship with the athletic. I think I saw like you're mainly reporting on like, college football and basketball, or UCLA football. Is that like kind of more just like around the area, like UCLA stuff? Like or what does that position like kind of entail?
Yeah, so it's not just UCLA stuff because there isn't enough national interest in UCLA football outside of Nico.
Right, right.
So I mean, anything pertaining to him, yes, I'll be doing. But other than that, it's like national stories. Like the other stories I'm working on right now are some of them are like sort of affect UCLA and USC a bit, or like the LA area.
Mhm.
Some are about like high schoolers that are like recruits, and so that does not
Yeah.
have much to do with UCLA, USC. And the rest are like national stories that don't have necessarily direct tie to the SoCal schools. But so it's a mix. It's like some stories have, if it's like a UCLA related story, it should have like some sort of national interest there. Otherwise, it's just like national stories as the Athletic does.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, the Athletic has long been one of my very, very favorite publications. So it's just really like a I know this is cliche, but a dream come true to write for them. And in like a week and a half of being there, I've learned so much from like such talented and knowledgeable reporters. So yeah, I'm really, really grateful.
Yeah, I've seen some of their work. I mean, that's a New York Times company. I mean,
Yeah,
they like I've seen a lot of their football previews. It sucks that a lot of stuff, some of the stuff's behind like a paywall because like I'd like to read more of that, but it's not that
yeah.
expensive. So I mean,
That's a paywall I would recommend investing in, though.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I might have to. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I guess like something I like to ask people like on this show particularly that are around like sports media or just like careers in general, like obviously you've gotten so far and you've written for all these different like publications that we just talked about and everything. Like what's your advice to like people want to break into this field, or in particular I guess sports writers and journalists, like like I've obviously like I'm big on, and what I've heard is like the just say yes attitude of like like subscribing to like doing things you might not want to, and welcome opening yourself up to new opportunities. But like, I guess what's something that you would like, what's your like biggest piece of advice to people who want to like, I guess, do this for a living or at least break into this field?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the say yes everything is something everyone's gonna say. I would say my biggest advice would be speaking, like making connections, like really connecting, like reaching out to people, speaking to
Yeah.
people, learning from people. This is an industry that like it's all about who you know in a sense. And there are so many people in this industry that are just so willing to teach you and talk to you and just like you can pick their brains and you can just
Mm-hmm.
bounce ideas off of them. Like I think a lot of my opportunities that I've, been really grateful to have is because I've just reached out to people and just asked them, made connections with them. And again, it's not about asking them for a favor or having it
Right.
transactional. It's about making connections and learning from them. Like in all the people everyone I've spoken to in this industry, it's just been like, I want to learn from you because there's something specific about you specifically that's like interests me. And I would just love to chat. And it's just like you don't know like who could help you with what down the line. You don't know
Yeah.
who's gonna put in a good word for you. You don't know, maybe you talk to someone and they can get you to a recruiter. You don't know. It could all help you. But the most important thing is that you can just learn so much from just reaching out to them. And journalism is one of those things where like UCLA doesn't have a journalism program, so I haven't taken a journalism class in my life besides like one at UCLA, which is the only one they offer. But like it's one of those fields where you learn by doing. Like I don't think I've lost out on anything because I haven't taken a journalism class. I just because of the
Mm-hmm.
Daily Bruin, I've been able to just learn by doing and doing.
Yeah.
And another way to like learn is to you find a reporter that you like read a lot, maybe you always follow their work and you follow them on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Reach out to them. Like just find their
Yeah.
emails, ask them for their emails, reach them and just learn from them. Those connections are like just so important, so helpful, and can take you a really long way. Like that's just the best piece of advice I've given anyone who's asked me that question. And it's the best thing that's helped me. I mean, half the things that I've been able to get and half the like opportunities I've gotten and people I've met has just been me reaching out and being like, hey, I just wanted to pick your brain. I just have a question on this specific thing. And like 9 out of 10 people are going to respond to you and want to talk to you because people in
That's
this industry
true.
love to talk. That's like part of the
Yeah.
job. So
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, no, that's a really good piece of advice. I mean, especially in this industry, it's all about connections and reaching out. But yeah, I mean, people could definitely help. They could teach you
yeah,
things like, you never know like where your opportunities like they might come from. I mean, so much of this series like it's been me reaching out to people like
yeah,
almost cold and like like that's worked out. So like sometimes it doesn't work out and like they just but that's like they leave you on red or whatever. That's okay. It's not really like a rejection. Maybe they're just too busy. But you never know. Like you're not gonna like get any. Like everything I've done is like because I decided to put the effort into doing it, or making the connection or like showing up and like all that kind of stuff. And even like for writing too, and radio, but even for writing, like I've gotten. I applied to this site and they weren't even, or I contacted this site and I showed them some of my work and they weren't even like hiring, but like, or they weren't, it wasn't like an open job post, but I was just like, hey, like, I really like the site. It's called Empire Sports Media. They cover like a lot of New York teams. And I was like, I really want to like talk about my Giants and this and that. And like, I've already been doing, and it was like, you know what I mean? I want to be able to, do that. And I got rejected in a couple other places, but I was like, this one sounds really cool. And I was like, I like the work here. I like all the content they create. So I was just like, let me like reach out, send an email, and then they're like, "This your work's like really good," and I'm like, I became like a part of it, and I'm obviously really busy with on the banks right now and the Rutgers stuff, but like, like whenever I can, like it's nice to be able to write an article about the Giants. I've written about the Nets, which I feel like don't get enough coverage in New York because I guess it's like a New Jersey team, even though they're in Brooklyn, but
yeah,
it's complicated with the Brooklyn Nets. They're also
yeah,
not great, but I mean, whatever. I mean, it's just nice to be able to like write about New York sports, and it's just like you said, like opening opportunities, connections, reaching out, and yeah, you never know. I mean, so you might as well like make those connections, and if you follow, yeah, like you said, if you follow a reporter, or like if you really like the way someone writes, or a sideline reporter or play-by-play, like whatever version of the industry you want to go into, that's someone you should talk to. I mean,
yeah,
worst case they do is they don't respond or like something like that, but like yeah, chances are they will. So I mean, I think that's like a really good piece of advice is to like, try to like, ask people and so you can learn from them. I mean, they might be able to give you that advice or that connection, and down the road, like you add those up, and that's how you get from point A to point B.
for sure. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know. That's something that I think I've learned with time. It's like it's not like a linear path, but it seems like one thing just kind of for me at least, like, and for you, I guess it kind of like led to another, and you talk to different people and you do different things, and like you said about the journalism too. Like I also didn't do journalism as a major, but like I mean, by doing radio and learning how to produce games and call games and write and do these different internships, and like I kind of taught myself like how to like write articles, but because I've been doing it, like now it's like second nature, and like I'll see a story and I'll get it. So it's just like, experience is like, I think, the best teacher, especially in this field too. And I think, yeah, I mean, I can't like oversell that like, you need to put in the work, and you really need to do it yourself. But there's so many opportunities to do it. So I mean, there's nothing really like stopping you, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like you need to advocate for yourself, and you get what you put into it. It's like that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
It's the more you put in, the more you get
for
in this
sure.
field, just like every other field too. But I mean, I think in this one specifically, it is like that as well. But I guess I did also want to like touch on some college football. Obviously, week one was big. I mean, week zero is kind of fun too, but week one was just absolutely huge. It might have been one of the best weeks of college football in a long time. Like, I was literally watching almost, like, not every game, but all the big ones. I mean, it started for me, I guess, with the Rutgers Ohio game, but the UCLA Utah opener, I know you were covering that one. Obviously, I mean, I was writing like around the Big Ten, and like I saw UCLA, unfortunately, was one of the couple schools to lose, and Utah, obviously, a really solid squad in the Big 12. They kind of took a little step back from when they won the Pac-12, but they're still like among the better programs. So I mean, what can you like say about, I guess, and obviously the Nico Ambialava, component of it, like, that's really been anticipated. But what can you like, I guess, how do you describe what happened in the opener with Utah winning like 43-10?
Yeah. I mean, in that score itself, nothing went right for UCLA. It was literally like everything went wrong. They looked like a team that hadn't done any strength or conditioning training in weeks. It's funny because I don't know if you saw, but Deshaun Foster, UCLA's head coach, has been really restrictive on media access throughout fall camp.
Mm.
Like, reporters get to watch like just stretching at practice, and they don't get all their like feature interview requests are getting denied.
Oh, wow.
They're not bringing out any notable athletes. We didn't speak to Nico a single time. We spoke to him at Big Ten Media Days, and then once, like the day before the opener, which is, he's a quarterback. That's not normal.
Right.
So it was just like there's a lot of anticipation because like Deshaun had like a back and forth with the reporter because they asked like what's with this new restricted policy. He was like, yeah, you guys post all of our stuff and put it online. Like, you guys record all of our stuff and put it online. If I was our opponent, I would like go and watch everything. So he's trying to be all this like hush hush, which is just like funny because no one like it's first of all, it's UCLA football. No one is that worried about that. For him to like hide everything and be all hush hush about it.
Right.
Also, like, I don't know what he thinks. He's like has some magic going on over there. But it was funny because I'm like, okay, what is he hiding, right? And then they come on and lose by 33 points at home in their season opener, and it's just like that's what you were hiding. So it's kind of ironic in that way. But yeah, Nico didn't have the best game. Obviously, all eyes were on him. 136 yards on 11 for 22 passing, one touchdown, one interception. But I will say that he wasn't like there wasn't any. Okay, I don't want to like glamorize him, but I do want to say that it's tough for you to look good when you aren't playing with as talented of a team. Like,
Right.
when your offensive line allows 4 sacks and I think he got pressured on like 59% of his dropbacks. When that's happening, it's tough for a quarterback to really shine when his offensive line is just
You're right.
trash. The defense wasn't bad. Like, I think Utah had the ball for like 37 minutes, 37, 50, 37 minutes, 56 seconds, something like that, like of the time. And it's just like not putting your offense in a position to do much. And obviously with that, Devin Dampier, Utah's quarterback, looked like outshine, Nico in all ways.
Oh, yeah.
He was passing where he wanted. He had all the time in the world to run the ball. Like, it was really honestly just funny, like how bad things turn out for UCLA. It was tough because Nico missed. So one of our wide receivers, Mikey Matthews, Nico missed, like he was wide open. I think UCLA's like opening possession, the second play, and if Nico like had hit him in that pass, UCLA would have been up 7-6 on their opening drive, and I think that would have just been a big like sort of momentum shifter, and that might have changed the whole course of the game. But Nico missed on that throw. I think he overthrew it, which was something he did a lot in that game. He overthrew like one too many passes, and they ended up having a turnover on downs that possession. So a lot of things just went wrong for UCLA. Nothing to really write home about. It was funny because yesterday, at like the first time Deshaun spoke to media after the blowout loss, the first thing he said was, "We were close," like verbatim, "We were close." And it's like, close to what. So
Yeah.
that didn't help. And as soon as he said that, all the reporters were like, "This is not going to land well on the internet." So obviously that tweet like blew up. Everyone's like, "Close to what?" Like someone commented like, "Close to what?" Like death. So like people didn't like that like
Yeah.
statement, obviously, because he lost me 33 points.
Yeah.
And you said a really, really good defensive unit last year with Carson Swishinger, Kane Madrano, Oluwafemi Oladejo, Jay Toya, all guys are now in the NFL,
Hmm.
and you can really feel their loss with like how many tackles were missed against Utah. It was just an all around really, really, really disappointing performance.
Yeah, because I know Utah was favored by like I think like 6.5 or something, but this was like
Yeah,
almost yeah. So I mean, it wasn't supposed to be like that, and obviously a lot of hype around Nico, and it was like this game. I mean, after a long day of college football, I mean, I didn't get to like watch it because there's just so many other things going on,
yeah,
and
it was a late
but
game.
yeah, but people were like, this is like a good nightcap, and it kind of wasn't, and but Devon Dampier though, like, because I remember like I think I saw his game like New Mexico versus Montana State last year, and I was like, this guy's like runs and he's like a dual threat. And I was like, I think Montana State actually upset them as an FCS school because they're like
Yeah,
one of the best. And but then I was like, this guy's like here now. Like when I saw the box score, and I was like, this is interesting, and he did really good. And I was like, okay, and that's I don't know. Maybe that means Utah's like gonna be among the Big 12. Like that's a conference that I feel like as much as I know about college football, like I really don't know like what it's like exactly going on there because I feel like all the teams there's so many similar teams. But I mean, I think Iowa State this year is really like pretty up there. I think Kansas State kind of had a meltdown against an FCS opponent, but they still won. So I don't know. I mean, Utah I think might be in the mix. Colorado, who knows? But like it's just like it feels like it's a little bit of a weird conference unless you like really follow it. But
yeah,
Arizona State I think is in there because they won it last year. It's
yeah,
just I feel like a lot of teams in that conference they end up like Kansas, like their quarterback Jalen Daniels looked pretty good in the opener. So I mean, and probably in the second game too against Wagner, but we played that team too. So I mean, but I mean, I don't know. Big 12 is just like it's kind of a little random. Like I feel like anyone could kind of win it. It might be Iowa State. They look really good. I mean, I think a game that I'm really anticipating watching is Rutgers versus or well, I mean that's in a few weeks, but Iowa versus Iowa State because I want to see where Iowa is because their game against UAlbany they barely threw the ball, and I was just like, well, they got this quarterback in the portal is supposed to help them with that, and like he had
yeah,
a really like typical Iowa passing game, 8 for 15, 44 yards and a touchdown, and as usual they're running the ball and they're stopping the run and they're playing good defense, and I was like, well, I guess Iowa's just going to be the same team again. But I think Iowa State this year has the upper hand. I did want to talk about the top week 2 matchups a little later, but I mean, I guess in terms of UCLA in itself, like I mean, I remember they beat Rutgers last season. It was kind of a downward spiral for the Scarlet Knights. They started out 4-0. They beat Virginia Tech, Washington. October was like a meltdown, but I mean, obviously, I feel like I've covered Rutgers and Ohio and everything on my other podcast, and I'm probably on this one. But in terms of where UCLA was, like, what was their 2024 season like last year? Because I feel like they had a couple of those like surprising wins, and then overall it was kind of a little downish. But like, where was UCLA coming off that 2024?
yeah. That Rutgers game was a big momentum shifter for UCLA. I don't know if you remember, but they lost they won their opener over Hawaii. It was also a
Oh yeah,
terrible
that was a
opener.
close one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little more of a modest score with UCLA won 16-13, but they didn't play well. They were like set to lose for most of the game. I think Mateen actually won it with a field goal at the end, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, not like they won, but not a very promising win. And that led to 5 straight losses. First to Indiana, that was their home opener. Also a
Oh
42-13
yeah.
sort of drubbing like it
Yeah, I
was on
remember everyone
Saturday.
was like, "Welcome to the Big Ten" or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And then
yeah, and
over
then
that
they're like
was
Indiana, like Indiana's giving them the welcome to the Big Ten, but then Indiana turned out to be an 11-1 playoff squad, so that's a little bit of a different story.
yeah,
But
but now we have their offensive coordinator, Antino Sinceri.
oh,
So
true, yeah,
he's known to be sort of sort of do some magic on, one-time quarterbacks. So let's see what he can do with
all
Nico. But he's
right,
had a lot of
yeah,
experience coaching guys who are just there for 1 year at James Madison and last year with Curtis. So, but yeah, after the Indiana game, then we lost to LSU, we lost to Oregon, we lost to Penn State in the game that I was at, and then we lost on like
right,
a last minute touchdown to Minnesota in a game where we were meant to win that game.
Yeah.
So a really, really tough way to start the season. I mean, UCLA was 4-1, and then they go to Rutgers, and then Ethan Garbers, who was last year's quarterback for the
Yeah.
Bruins,
Hmm.
had a breakout game. I think he had some like 383 yards and 4 touchdowns, 48 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Like he had a
Yeah, I remember
like
that stat line, and I remember seeing how good he looked on the field. And suddenly the Rutgers defense, which has always been a strong point of the team, just like really went like really got bad. And then like what
yeah.
up? Yeah, it was rough. And then they turned it around in November, and they actually had a really good solid November. And their offense is actually taking off to another level. And that looks like, based on the Ohio opener, that looks like it's there to stay. But there's major questions right now with the Rutgers defense. But I mean, going into this season, they Ohio top MAC team. They won 11 games, but I mean, Parker Navarro was running all over the field. It looks like Rutgers has a problem with mobile quarterbacks, so maybe that's also what happened there. But I mean, like, oh boy, like it's interesting stuff. Like you don't really expect that to happen, but who knows what's going to happen for the rest of our season. It might be a tough one. Our schedule is very tough this year. We play Ohio State, Penn State, like some of the top team, Oregon. But I mean, I guess yeah, like you were saying though. I mean, in terms of UCLA, then they also get a win over Nebraska. They beat Iowa, so it's like they strung a few wins together.
Yeah,
And
they ended
then
four and
yeah,
two.
it what?
They ended the season 4-2 after starting uh what was it, like 5-1 or something like that.
Yeah, they had a really rough
Or
start.
they started the year 1-5, and they ended the year or 1-4, the end of the year 4-2, something like that. So they really
Yeah,
turned it around after that Rutgers game.
yeah. And the UCLA, I mean the Rutgers game, they won that. Nebraska, Iowa, so that's three in a row. Then they lose to Washington and UCLA, but both of those are at least like kind of tight. And then they get their finale win over Fresno State, which is an interesting game at that late. But I guess USC had their game against Notre Dame, so it's like
Yeah.
kind of a rivalry week thing. But yeah, no, I mean yeah, I mean 5-7 obviously kind of sucks in a way because it's like you just missed, but like at the same time, like it should have provided some possible momentum. But after like seeing the start, like it's just like it's a little nervy because I mean now UCLA has UNLV who's 2-0, and they also had a rough start to their season in the FCS. Like they almost lost to Idaho State. They have a new coach, Dan Mullen, so that's suddenly
Yeah.
become like a really interesting game. I mean, I don't know. Do you have any like insight or predictions on what's gonna happen like with that
Yeah, it's
one?
funny because UCLA is now 2-point favorites over UNLV, and
Well,
UNLV
interesting.
is, yeah, like you're saying, they have some promise, but they're not that, at that like
Yeah, they're not
remarkable.
where they were like last year. They're one of the top G5s in the country. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
if
I
not
mean,
for
they are a
Boise State,
G5
they
for
may have
that.
made the
UCLA is
playoffs.
power.
So
Sorry.
yeah. No, I mean, if not for Boise, like they probably would have been in that playoff conversation last year. They beat multiple Power Fours last year, so UNLV was like they were ranked most of the season. They were very very good this year though. I don't know. I mean, they've won 2 games against not that great teams, and I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one because now UCLA also had a blowout loss. So like you said, they're 2 point favorites. This is probably gonna be in anyone's
Yeah.
type of game, I guess. So
Yeah. Also, an away game for UCLA. I mean, honestly, UCLA's home crowd at the Rose Bowl on Saturday was very, very sparse. I would say there's probably as many Utah fans there as there was UCLA fans. So that, and now they're going on the road. So not
mm,
much in favor of UCLA, but it's also like any other season. And, if that Utah game had gone just a little bit better, UCLA should be like 8-10 point favorites in this game. There's no reason
right.
they should be 2-point favorites over UNLV. So,
Yeah.
it's suddenly this has become a game where going from like this is a UCLA win, like 99% sure this UCLA win, to like this is a literal this could go either direction,
It's a
and that's
coin
just
flip.
sort of
Yeah.
summarizing UCLA's trajectory now.
And that's even with how bad UNLV looked like
Yeah,
to start their first couple. Like this is not the same like Vegas team as they were even last year. So yeah, it's just not too promising. Obviously, Big Ten plays coming too, and their schedule gets a lot tougher. I mean, Penn State comes to town. Oh, they go to Ohio State. I mean, there's other winnable ones in there. There's Northwestern, Michigan State, Maryland. But even to like beat those, like I feel like UCLA is probably gonna have to step it up at least
yeah.
a
I
little
mean,
bit.
they have a third hardest schedule in the country. So even with the travel isn't as bad as last year. Last year they're going to Indiana for their second game. Um, and Oregon then, so they had like bigger travel. I think those were at home actually. They had later bigger travel later to Rutgers and Nebraska and
Yeah,
stuff.
right, right.
So the travel helps, but like you're saying, Penn State, Michigan State, and then Indiana, and then Ohio State, and then
Yeah.
USC. And USC looks good, even though
Oh,
they
they
played like a
yeah.
Missouri State. But
Right,
I mean,
right.
73-13. Like,
Yeah, that was quite the opener for USC, and
yeah,
yeah, what's now like, Missouri State's first FBS game, so that was
exactly.
kind of a rough one for them. But I mean, but like, USC definitely got that start in a big way. But yeah, no, I mean, it should be an interesting season for the Bruins, for the Big Ten as a whole. I mean, um, yeah, I mean, I did want to talk about some of these, top games around week one, because I feel like that's what we were all watching, and I feel like that would be a good time. It would be a good time on this episode to do that. But I guess starting with Ohio State, Texas, I think the Buckeyes. Speaking of the Big Ten, like I think they made the biggest statement on the national stage. Like we talked about Rutgers and some of the other teams struggling against some of the top end of the MAC, but Ohio State played the top, like literally the top ranked team in Texas, and now they're ranked seventh. But I mean, to make a statement like that, and it was a very interesting game because it was a very defensive type of game too. It was a 14-7, and Arch Manning versus Julian Sayin. I think Sayin was the one who actually looked more ready for the moment. I don't
Really
know.
less experience. Yeah, he's younger.
Yeah, exactly. He's younger. He's played less. I think Manning's still at least been in some game situations, even as coming in as a backup or whatever. Like I've seen him in plays, and saying I've like never seen. I know I think he played some backup snaps, but like not as much. But he also didn't look that like crazy impressive. There was some passes that were dropped, but overall he was a better game manager. I feel like the
Yeah.
storylines, the defenses, they were both like so good, and the offenses are both so conservative. They didn't really reveal anything because obviously you don't want to make mistakes, and I guess Arch Manning still made like that a couple like with the interception, but
Oh
Ohio
yeah.
State is just like, I don't know, man. Like they lost all these players to the NFL, and I feel like they're that good. And it's even on defense. Like you think maybe if they won, Jeremiah Smith and the receivers would be going off because that's what they're known for. But their defensive line stopped Texas from the one again, like which is a problem for like literally every other team last year. And I wanted to make fun of Texas a little more for it, but I was just like, well, I don't think anyone else is getting in on them. Like, I mean, they just know what to do, and they have these giant tackles. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess what are your takeaways from just that game, like as a whole?
Yeah. I mean, on the Texas side of things with Arch Manning, I just think, like, yeah, very, very underwhelming performance as everyone's sort of writing and, speaking about. But I will say that, like, this is a guy who there's so much hype around his name because of the family he comes from. And it's really been put on him. Like, I don't want to just, like, be naive
Mhm.
and say, like, oh, he doesn't deserve it. Like, yes, he didn't play well. That's a fact. But also at the same time, like, he's not asked for all this sort of
That's
commotion
true.
around his
Yeah.
name. He's not been like, yeah, I'm like top dog. Everyone look at me. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna win the
Exactly.
Heisman. He even said like I don't even know why there's so much hype. I haven't done anything yet.
Yeah. He
He said
really.
that in a
Yeah.
press conference. So it's just like everyone's put this crazy amount of hype on him. He's gonna be a first round pick. He's gonna win the Heisman. Blah blah blah. Ohio State's number one. Like it's just like crazy expectations. Even like Sark said after the game, like people have thrown these expectations on Arch, and like he didn't like. It's just blown out of proportion. You know what I mean? So it's just like people's
Mhm.
expectations were way too high, and I think that's just a little like to be a little more fair on the guy. But that being said, he didn't play well. Julian Saint, on the other hand, again, like you're saying, not very flashy, but just very poised. Careful with the football,
Yeah.
avoided mistakes.
He hit
And
Carnell Tate with that big pass, and that
yeah,
was
the
that was the
40-yard.
big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think Ohio State needed someone steady and efficient and sort of mistake free to give
Right.
credit to Julian Saint, which you can't really tell on his stat line. There were 2 throwaways and 3 drop passes, so
Right. Exactly.
stronger
Yeah.
than his numbers suggest.
Yeah, I mean, his stat line was 13 for 20, and he, like you said, there's 3 drops, there's two, right, 3 drops, two throwaways. So like even then, like it might have even been better. And Arch Manning, on the other hand, yeah, you're right. Like he didn't deserve. I mean, like too much, a little bit too much hype. But like, I mean, obviously the name has something to do with it, and there's just a lot of hype. But like, he didn't really, I guess, play up to expectations. But that being said, like I think at the end of the game, he started to get his momentum
He
going. Like
did,
when
yeah, the second
he
half.
got that touchdown pass, and even the some of the other throws, like he was starting to find his groove, and he was 17 for 30, 170, a touchdown, a pick, and Julian saying like 13 for 20, 126, and touchdown. clean game. Like you said, two throwaways, 3 drops. The 3 drops could have definitely helped the stat line be even better. But in terms of the running back room for Ohio State, I mean, Donaldson was pretty decent. Their other guy I don't think was that great. I mean, neither of these guys are going to be like Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, but I mean, I think they'll be solid. It's just both of these teams are going to start opening the playbook. They're going to get better on offense. Like, if these two teams play again, we're probably going to see like 28-24 or something like that, because both sides of the ball will be on point. This time, both quarterbacks obviously finding their groove. Yeah, so I mean, and other than that, Clemson LSU, I think that was another interesting one because yeah, I mean, like it was LSU win, and I think the two things, the takeaways are like, the stereotypes about those two teams are just kind of like, like both of them are kind of like good, but they're not really like over the hump. And the LSU lost like 6 openers in a row. Clemson, as good as they've been, like they haven't really been where they used to be. And I guess their whole knock now is like they haven't been an SEC team since like they went winless last year. And it's just like, for me, like someone who like I guess will usually root against SEC when I can, and like I've liked Clemson for that reason. I like Ohio State for that reason too. But like I mean, and also they just like play a beautiful, awesome style of football, talent all over the place. But I mean, in terms of Clemson LSU, I mean, I really thought this was a good chance for Clemson to overcome that. And they were in the game. I think both teams are pretty legit, but I guess LSU was the better one. Like they're down.
LSU's defense really.
LSU's defense shut them down. They were up 10-3, Clemson, and then LSU just took over. And there was like this. The officiating's been really weird. Like I mean, they're really like emphasizing this completion of the catch process. Like it looked like Clemson had a touchdown, or LSU did. They took it off the board even though he crossed the pylon. And and I was just like, okay, but then they ended up scoring anyway. Like later on, I think they ended up getting the ball back and scoring. So it was just like Clemson, I think, had a break and they still lost the game. And yeah, I mean, it's a little unfortunate, but I think because it was so close, Clemson had the ball back with a chance to win. Like, I mean, I think they're still in the mix of things. Like, they're still like a top 10 team. It's just, yeah. I mean, I think both of these teams are legit. It's just now they're gonna have to wait till South Carolina to get that SECW if they can, because South Carolina is also a very feisty team. But in terms of the ACC thing, like, I mean, I think they'll end up being in the playoffs. For sure. And like I guess the other one, speaking of the ACC, like I think the big upset of the week was obviously Florida State over Alabama. Yeah, that one was like, I was watching this game too, and this one was like one heck of a fun one. But like I don't know, like I mean, I think the whole storyline behind this game was Thomas Castellanos and everything he said about like how Nick Saban isn't going to save them, and a lot of people are thinking he was just talking out of his mouth and they're going to humble him, and he didn't really do anything at Boston College, and why is he acting like a big shot over here? And but then he came there and like, oh my god, like that guy is like, I was talking about like Parker Navarro. This guy's like even more like mobile. He's just like running away from people, and yeah. I mean, Alabama had no answers for anything. Like the run, the pass, like the defense.
Oh, exactly.
Like, none of it.
They were out coached. They were out coached, out prepared, and sort of out executed Alabama in every facet of the game.
It's just a shocker for Alabama football to be like playing like that. I mean, like, to be out coached, out executed, like everything. I mean, Ty Simpson also looked kind of shaky in his debut. Like he didn't look the best. I mean, the run game wasn't that great. I mean, Jeremy Bernard looked pretty good, but I mean, Castellanos, true dual threat. He only was 9 for 14, 152 yards, but then he had 78 in the ground, and Florida State was just running the ball. They were stopping Bama, and I think the most disturbing part was just like seeing the videos of like, the player for Alabama. They were showing videos of like Alabama's like players just like jogging after the FSU guy, and like they're like, this is like the effort that's going on here, and I was like, that there's like a big like culture problem. People are saying like Alabama football, like they're just not the same with Kalen DeBoer. They're not taking it as seriously. They're inviting people over at night, and they're just like they're not being prepared. They're late for the buses, and the tackling effort. It's just like it's just not good.
Yeah, there was a tweet that was like someone who's, I don't remember exactly the relation to Alabama, but they're staying in the same hotel, and they were like, guys are walking on at 1:30 a.m. Guys are ordering food. Guys don't have no sort of like discipline. Exactly, no one's coming in like lights off. Like it's just, there's no discipline basically.
Yeah, they're inviting girls or getting food. They're doing everything but like football, and like that's or going to sleep, and that's like a big like this is Alabama football. Like, you got to take it seriously, and like I mean, it's just like not the time or the place. But I don't know, man. Like I mean, Castellanos backed it up. He talked a lot of trash. He backed it up. Florida State put themselves back on the map, and after the season that they've had, like, last year and the year before they missed the playoff. They've been on this like big roller coaster, and it looks like they're like legit. And the whole state of Florida looks like legit. Florida looks good. Florida State looks good. Miami looks good after their win over Notre Dame, which maybe we can just get to that. And then South Florida beat Boise State. Like they're all gonna play each other now in the next couple of weeks. South Florida's playing both of them. Florida's playing Miami. I mean, I guess we're gonna get to see who's the best team in the state. Like after this whole all these teams are literally playing each other. So I'm really excited to see like where that all turns out, because I mean, Miami also got a win over Notre Dame, and I feel like that was also like slightly a little bit surprising, because I feel like Miami's always been underprepared, and they've always been like a little flash and like like a kind of similar team, but this time they backed it up too. And Notre Dame, they had the lead, then Notre Dame I think came back on them, but then Miami, they won. Carson Beck I guess looked pretty good. I mean, I guess Miami like proved themselves for real, because I think a lot of people also same thing with them, like thought they were like a flashy program that didn't really produce on the football field, and at least in the big games. But this time they won over like a team that was national runners up last year. So I think they also made a pretty big statement in their opener.
For sure. That was a really fun game to watch, down to the wire as well.
Yeah, and Miami was up by like 14, but then Notre Dame came roaring back in the fourth quarter. They had a field goal, they had a touchdown. CJ Carr looked pretty good too, but and then Miami hitting the field goal could go up, but then Notre Dame just ran out of time on the last play. I think they just didn't even get a play off. They were way far away too. So props to the U, I guess, for pulling that one out. I mean, other than that, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, that's another one that I was watching. I don't know. I feel like Virginia Tech's just like they're kind of just like they're kind of not really that good or that bad. They're in the middle. Like I know they lost to Rutgers a couple of times. They've lost a lot of these non-conference games in the beginning of the season, even to like the Power Fours that aren't all that great. Like like Rutgers, they lost to Vanderbilt, they've lost to Purdue. They've started the season slow multiple years in a row, and then they just haven't really like gotten off the ground in ACC play. Like I don't know. I just feel like that's a concerning trend. And South Carolina also wasn't the best of like. They didn't really play all that great, but they played in the end. They played better, and it was like a little bit of a disappointer for both. But Lenora Sellers looked really good. The South Carolina pass rush, they definitely got there. The receiver Bruin for like a big touchdown, like Nick Harbor. So there's some excitement. South Carolina's supposed to have a big season this year, so I'm definitely going to be locked in on what they do. I think they're like in one of those sleeper positions for the playoff. Like Illinois is also in that group, I think. But I think South Carolina, they both went 9-3, Illinois and South Carolina. I think they're both ready to take the next step. So I don't know. I mean, in the SEC, like South Carolina has always been underlooked, and you'll be surprised how many SEC schools even are overlooked, because like they tend to get a lot of media attention, and even then there's like a bunch of sleepers. South Carolina is one of them. I really hope they turn that around this year. I mean, they just have to make the most of their schedule. I mean, Alabama now, like the way they are, they just have to find a way to get themselves into the dance, and then I guess like I don't know, anything can happen from that point.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then finally, I guess TCU versus UNC. I feel like I'm gonna mention that one. Definitely like Bill Belichick's debut imploded in the worst way. They got a first touchdown, and then so much hype around like Chapel Bill and like the UNC football team after Belichick came, and then they just got completely demolished by TCU. Like Josh Hoover looked pretty good. Kavorian Barnes looked pretty good. Like, all their big players like Jordan Dwyer looked pretty good. But I mean, UNC could not tackle. They could not like put, they didn't get anything on offense. They had a fumble return, which looked really bad. They like two players banged into each other and the ball went the other way. I don't know. It's just like kind of an embarrassment. Like, UNC, there's all this offseason hype, and like, just like already imploded in one game. Like, I don't know if like, you were watching that one or not, but that was just like a really, really bad way for that program to, make that was a nationally televised game and everything. And that was not a good way for them to, start their debut, I guess.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, that first drive was great, and it has all the touchdown drive, like all the signs of a good game, and then Bill Belichick gets one of the worst losses in his
career,
ever. I mean, so many different stats that kind of back that up. I think he had never ever given up 48 points in his time coaching in the NFL, or maybe done it on like a countable number of times, and he has lost it was like one of, if not a third or something, biggest margin of loss in his career. So really just the worst possible start. It's, again, for so much hype around the team. Like it was, I don't know if you saw TCU's their Twitter page. They made a lot of, they just like had a great time. Had a field day making fun of UNC.
Yeah, I think I saw some of the. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, there was like some stuff that they. I don't know. They talked about like the how like Belichick being the coach and like they're just like mocking everything about the day. So I mean, it was just full of memes, full of this and that, and one-liners. And yeah, I mean, I guess I have to take a little look. But I did see that earlier, and I was just like, yeah, they were just definitely mocking everything about Belichick coaching, and yeah, I don't know, where does UNC go from here? Because I mean, now they have like Charlotte. Well, they have some winnable games coming up, I guess, and then I guess in ACC play they have to figure this one out because this. Yeah, I mean the way Belichick is, they're gonna prepare and they're gonna get better, and they might have a quarterback decision to make now. They might end up playing their other guy because he wasn't that great. So like, or they might end up playing Max Johnson. So I mean, who knows? Like, he ended up doing pretty much better. I would say he went 9 for 11, 103 yards and a touchdown in like limited action. The other, and compared to Gio Lopez, but I mean it was just they didn't complete a pass for 2 hours. It was just like, yeah, it was pretty bad. They kind of embarrassed themselves. It's kind of like Colorado, but Colorado at least was pretty good the first few weeks, and then they imploded. And then the second season they came back pretty strong. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But I guess yeah. I mean, before we wrap up, did want to talk about the AP poll coming out today. And we already covered all the games. So like, I mean, main takeaways are like Ohio State at 1, which I think was well deserved. They beat the number 1 team at home, and well, either way, they beat the number 1 team. They look dominant, at least on defense. Penn State at 2, big season, a lot of expectations in Happy Valley. And then LSU, Georgia, Miami's 3-5. Oregon, Texas, Clemson 6-8. Notre Dame, South Carolina, Illinois 9-11. Those are like the top 11 that I want to mainly cover. I don't know. The one thing that surprised me, like with the way that there's so much like SEC bias, but Texas was down to 7 after like losing by 7 in the shoe, and I was just like, it's almost funny because I was like, I mean, everyone wants to put the horns down, but I mean, like they still played a respectable game, and I don't know. It's like it was funny for me. I was like smiling while tweeting it, but I was just like, Texas might be a little too low now. I was like, do I really care? No, but I mean, like I think they were a little low. I mean, I think UGA, like they played like a cupcake team. Penn State kind of did too. Like LSU obviously had a big win. Like Oregon did. Like although Montana State was one of the best in the FCS, but like
Yeah.
there's so I don't know. Is that, do you think like maybe they dropped Texas down a little too far? Or do you think that's, and same thing with Clemson too? Like, or do you think those spots are like about right?
I mean, there's a case to be made that it's, they've been dropped too far from going from number 1 spot to number 7. But I mean, yeah, I agree. Honestly, yeah, I agree. I was trying to make a case for the other way, but yeah, they lost the number 1 team. It's not like they lost to some like,
Right.
mid-major team or something like that. So I do think that's like a pretty low drop. But then you see Alabama down to 21,
Yeah.
and Utah back up to 25. So there are like
Yeah.
oddities all over. I think Utah deserves to be there after their performance. I think they
so.
deserve to be higher than 25.
Probably.
They did play a very bad UCLA team, but they looked really good, and Devin
They did
Dempsey
blow
looked
them
really
out.
good.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, Penn State being second. I mean, it is Penn State, but like they also beat like Nevada, who's like what 10
Yeah. Well,
West. So
they also
nothing
did
to
start.
beat.
Yeah, I mean, they did start too. So like, there's nothing really, in my opinion, that would like take them off of it. Like, given that they comfortably beat Nevada by as much as you'd expect, maybe a little less. But like, I mean,
Yeah.
because Nevada tacked on a late touchdown, but no, they look. I was watching a little bit of that too. They look pretty good. I hate to say as a Rutgers fan, but their roster might be like, roster wise, they're probably the best in the Big Ten in terms of when you combine talent with continuity. A lot of the other big programs, they might have more talent. They don't have as high like continuity. Same thing with Clemson too, but like in their big game experience. And now after seeing the way Ohio State handled Texas, like I feel like Ohio State might win that game in Columbus against Penn State. Penn State might go undefeated the rest of the way, and then from there on, who knows like what happens. It can go either way. I mean, those two are going to be 1 and 2 probably for a while. LSU at 3, I think they made a big statement. Georgia, I mean, yeah, I mean these teams, Miami made a statement too. Georgia, like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like they look pretty good, and then I don't know, Oregon, Texas, Clemson. I mean, I think it's about right. Maybe you drop Texas. It's just, but then some people also say, well, should they really have been 1 to start the season? Like, I don't know. Maybe they should have started the season at like 3, and then it makes sense to move them down to 7. But I feel like they were overrated, and then now they're like underrated in a weird way, which is, there's always like oddities with this poll. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's really bizarre the
Sure.
way. And Alabama at 21, like, I mean, yeah, you can't drop them all the way out of the poll like in 1 week. Like, I know they like imploded, but they're still Alabama. Like, you got to give them some, some track record, or you can't just drop a team from like top 10
Recency
out
effect.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Alabama, you know what I mean. So it's just this week at least they should be ranked, but they're really playing on thin ice. If they lose a few more of these games, like they're gonna be done. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, Notre Dame 9, South Carolina 10, 11, Illinois. I mean, that's about right, and then so on and so forth. Like we go down the list, but in terms of week 2, I mean, there's a couple Big Ten matchups against like other power conference schools that I think are going to be like the ones to look out for this week. I mean, I think the big game, college game day, is going to be in Oklahoma for Michigan versus OU. I think Bryce Underwood, and then John Mateer. I think that's going to be the best. It could be the best game. It's two big brands, but I mean, Michigan struggled a little with New Mexico, which was interesting, but. I mean, their offense was all right. Like, I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, I think Oklahoma's favored. I think that's one to watch. Iowa State, I think, obviously, like I mentioned already about Rutgers and how Iowa is, and that's going to be something I need to like follow up. But it always tends to be a really good game, and I always miss it, and I hate that because I'm always busy with something. This year, I'm making sure I'm not missing the whole Iowa State game. I need to see that. Iowa State also looks really good. They're ranked 16th, and then finally Illinois versus Duke, number 11 Illini. The Duke Blue Devils. I mean, Duke is also like an ACC contender. They just added Darian Mensah from Tulane. Illini, I mean, this is supposed to be a big season for Illinois. I mean, they have relatively easy schedule. This might be one of their losable games, though. I mean, Illinois, the only teams I see them losing to, like Ohio State, I'm sure they are, but then, most likely. But then Indiana, even Indiana looks a little underwhelming. Duke, they're not ranked. Like, Illinois should really be 11-1, but I'll give them a break, and maybe they lose one. They should really not be lower than 10-2, 9-3 at the worst. I mean, it's a good Illini team, but we'll find out how good they are this week. I don't know. Week 2 is kind of dry-ish. Like there's
Yeah.
not, compared to
I
week
mean,
1,
yeah.
there's right.
You have the top teams playing, like Ohio State's playing Grambling, Georgia playing Austin Peay, Oregon playing, like there's just not that much excitement with those big teams. I also think week 1 kind of spoilt us in that way with the like opening kind of week matchups. But, I think that week 4, week 5 is something to look forward to. It has Ohio State, Penn State's that week, and there's some big games that week. So I know I'm scheduling that weekend as busy for sure.
That's how it works. Yeah, no, I mean week 2, like Oregon or Oklahoma State, there's like decent Power 4 games that like are interesting enough for college football fans to watch. But there's Virginia Tech Vanderbilt is one that I'm like, that's the type of matchup that like would have me into it, because like both of these teams are up and coming and goodish, and it's at Lane, and like I've been there with Rutgers. Like that should be a fun one. There's Arizona State, Mississippi State. There's like enough on here where it's not going to be completely boring. There's Boston College at Michigan State, but it's not really like the best slate. But like you said, like week 5, I think there's some really good games. Georgia, Alabama, I think is that week, and then Penn State versus Oregon at the Whiteout is going to be the other big game that week, and they're both on at night too. So that's going to be a fun like flipping the channels. Like it's gonna be it's gonna be a good one. Rutgers plays Minnesota. That's probably gonna be earlier. Yeah, I mean, Ohio State plays Washington. That could be a good game. Washington's very, like, sneaky good. And, like, I was doing off-season research. Their roster is loaded. Their quarterback looks really good. So, I mean, that could be like, when those teams come, like, to a place like a Washington or Iowa, suddenly, like, those teams have a good chance. So, like, those are always fun. But, I mean, yeah, week 5, I think we pick up conference play. Week 4, Rutgers plays Iowa in the blackout. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, other than that, I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, in terms of like NFL, like I guess, do you have like a favorite team? I know this is like the first week of NFL season, and I'm excited to see the Giants back in action and the rest of the slate. But like, I guess, what are you looking out for this year?
I like the Rams. I mean, that's boring because I'm in LA, but that's a team I've like covered. That's a team I really enjoy. There's a lot of unique characters in there. I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, should be a good one. The Rams is a team I'm very high on. Also, like the Seahawks, like similarly, but because well, the Rams were one of the closest. They were, I think, the closest team to beat the Eagles, and I was rooting for them for that reason. And it was just a very frustrating postseason for me, like rooting against Philly like every week and having every team lose and getting worse and worse with the Commanders and then the Chiefs getting just blown out, and it was just a disaster. But the Rams, though, they played a good game. I mean, Saquon Barkley did Saquon Barkley things in the snow, but I mean, the Rams came very close. They got the stop. They got the ball back. They were a little short. Jared Verse was having a great time with the trolling, and that was a lot of fun. But no, the Rams, I think, with Stafford and
Yeah, with Stafford back, I mean, they're legitimate Super Bowl
yeah,
contenders.
and Kyron Williams. I feel like last year that was like the beginning, like for them, like they kind of put pieces together, but they weren't really like all there. They were kind of just, and then they still almost like beat the Eagles, and people are like, whoa. And now like they kind of did a whole offseason of work and trying to put pieces together. And now it's kind of like, who knows? Maybe they can win the West. I mean, that West is going to be competitive, but I think the Rams have a good case. I'm like high on them to potentially even make the NFC Championship game this year. We'll see what happens. I think the Commanders are going to be in the mix. Philly is going to be in the mix, and the AFC is like your usual Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. Like it kind of just gets old in the AFC, but NFC, like anyone could kind of like come out and like like punch their ticket. Like San Francisco might be back. Like who knows? But so that's kind of my thing. Like I feel like AFC is like kind of like the same old, and NFC is kind of like someone can come out and take it. But yeah, I'm excited. Football season is right around the corner. NFL, college football is already well underway, as we talked about. But yeah, like I said, thank you for like coming on. I mean, it's definitely like a lot of fun for me to do this series because I feel like I learn a lot from all the guests that I have on, and definitely learn a lot about like your journey and everything. And yeah, I mean, and then of course talking football, like I love to do that too. So like I said, thanks for coming on. I mean, is there anything like you want to share about yourself or ask me like before we like sign off?
Nothing else about myself. I think I've talked a bit too much about myself. Maybe just for you, what's like the coolest thing you've learned doing all of this podcasting stuff?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think like I said, like the different perspectives and I think it's for me it's been like about like the journey of doing it. Like I recently reached 100 episodes on my main series, which is
Oh
called
my god,
Sports Vibe.
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And there's actually been probably more episodes because there's been double headers, there's been the just vibing, so there's been over 100. But that's big. I don't know, just the process of it. Like when I started out 2 years ago, like I had radio experience, but I didn't really know how to like I invited co-hosts and like everyone had a different perspective and like social media. It was just like posting episodes. It became like a grind, but I mean, I think the more I did it, the more comfortable I got, and then I kind of realized what's good, what sells, and what doesn't, and how to plan episodes, and like I said, it's like it's a journey. But I mean, I think for now, like I found something that like me and my friend, because of this series, or because of my podcast, we were able to start like a podcast for or my site on the banks called the bells must ring, and that one's really become like or something that's like I've become really passionate about because it's like it kind of brings everything full circle. Because when I first started following like Rutgers sports as a member of the marching band, I was like I didn't really know too much about college football, so I used to read like on the banks. I used to like listen to podcasts that by Rutgers hosts and stuff like that. And now like a few short years later, like we started this podcast. I'm like on the other side, so I think for me like it's really cool to be able to do the game previews and talk to guests and like be on the be like I would never call myself like an expert, but be able to like be that the person to like break things down. And like it really feels good to be able to give back in just a few short years, picking up all that knowledge, having all these experiences, and now being on the other side where I could deliver it. And nothing I love to do more. So I mean, it's been really great. And obviously with this series, like I'm still going to be doing sports vibe and all the good stuff, but I think I'm going to be shifting more over to the bells must ring as well as my work on the banks. But I don't know, I think just like continuing to build something. And but I think what it really is like I really enjoy talking about sports. And I enjoy giving back. I enjoy sharing my knowledge, and of course I enjoy like learning from others and talking to other people, which is why like I love this series so much too.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It was great to be on.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, well, that sounds good. I guess this has been another episode of Just Vibing. Remember, the bells or the vibes are always high on Sports Vibe, not to confuse anything, but I'll let you guys know when we plan another episode for Just Vibing as well as Sports Vibe. In the meantime, enjoy the NFL season, enjoy college football, enjoy everything else, and have a good one, guys.